This conference will now be recorded.
So students, today we're going to talk a little bit about deeper aspects of hematology. This is a case history of a 41-year-old lady with extreme pallor, gum bleeds, purpura, menorrhagia for 1 month, and fever with mouth ulcers for 1 week. No organomegaly. Read that again. 41-year-old lady, extreme pallor, gum bleeds, purpura, menorrhagia for 1 month, and fever with mouth ulcers for 1 week. No organomegaly. What can be the diagnosis? If you have a differential diagnosis, you can. Bal Mukesh says acute leukemia, thrombocytopenia, microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, MAHA, pancytopenia, Nikila. Nikila, why do you say it's pancytopenia? Why is it pancytopenia? If you know the answer, you can type in the chat box. This is a form of pancytopenia, obviously. Pancytopenia means it includes all three cell lineages of the bone marrow. So you have extreme pallor that indicates anemia. Gum bleeds, that means there is some sort of thrombocytopenia. And then fever. Fever indicates some sort of infection. So that means there's decreased WBC count. So it's probably pancytopenia. So what kind of pancytopenia do you think this is? Idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. That is not correct because there's also anemia and WBC count. Himanjali, you're right. Aplastic anemia could be one of the major differential diagnoses. And that is today's class, aplastic anemia. Bone marrow failure syndrome. It's a bone marrow failure syndrome. Here the bone marrow fails, so all three cell lineages are affected, and there is hypoproliferative anemia. So that means there is direct effect on the bone marrow, causing decreased production of the particular cell lineages here. Now, aplastic anemia is obviously a misnomer because it's not just an anemia; it's a cytopenia. It includes all three, so it's called pancytopenia. So, aplastic pancytopenia would have been a better term, but it's been traditionally called aplastic anemia. Coming to the contents of our presentation today, we have the definition, etiology of aplastic anemia, what is the brief pathogenesis, clinical features, lab investigations, diagnosis, differential diagnosis of pancytopenia, treatment, prognosis, and case study. It's going to be a short class, so pay attention and we'll finish it off in about 20 minutes, half an hour. So the definition is a pancytopenia with hypocellularity. That means there's aplasia of the bone marrow. One cell line may be affected more than the others. That means there can be something predominant. It can be either anemia predominant or granulocytopenia predominant, or it can be because of thrombocytopenia predominant. So one of these Okay, it's back again. So, can you hear me, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. We'll continue. So here, pancytopenia with hypocellularity or aplasia of the bone marrow. One cell line may be affected more than the others. So, like I was talking, there can be anemia predominant, or there can be WBC, neutropenia predominant, or sorry, lymphopenia predominant, and it can also be thrombocytopenia predominant. So, in case it's anemia predominant, the patient will present with progressive fatigue, severe weakness, easy fatigability, and probably will land in congestive cardiac failure. If it is because of WBC predominant, sorry, this lymphopenia or neutropenia, the patient can present with sort of infections, fever may or may not be present, and they'll have focal signs of infection. If it's thrombocytopenia predominant, there'll be bleeding gums, there'll be purpura, petechiae, there can be easy visibility. So these are all the features of thrombocytopenia predominant pancytopenia. So anaplastic anemia can be any of these cell lines. This is schematic representation of the production of all the cell lineages. Here you have the multipotent stem cell, then you have the pluripotent stem cells, colony forming unit of myeloid precursors, colony forming unit of the lymphoid precursors. Here you have blood forming unit, erythroid, colony forming unit, megakaryocyte. Here you have colony forming unit of the erythrocyte, gives rise to red cell. Megakaryocyte gives rise to platelets. Colony forming unit of granulocyte, monocyte. One is granulocyte, the other one is monocyte. Granulocyte gives rise to neutrophil, monocyte gives rise to monocyte. Colony forming unit of eosinophils gives rise to eosinophil. Colony forming unit of basophils gives rise to basophil. And here colony forming unit of the lymphoid precursors. Pre-B cell gives rise to lymphocytes. Also thymus, there are thymic stem cells that give rise to mature cells. So B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. So T lymphocytes are predominantly involved in cell-mediated immunity, and B lymphocytes are predominantly involved in uh, B cell immunity, antibody-based. So here, if there is a problem either in the multipotent stem cell or in the pluripotent stem cells, then there can be aplastic anemia. Etiology. What are the causes of aplastic anemia? First one, inherited. Most common one is Fanconi's anemia. Fanconi's anemia is a severe form of congenital aplastic anemia. Then there is acquired because of idiopathic. Majority of the cases are idiopathic. Then there is drug related. That means there is acetazolamide, carbamazepine, gold, identoin, uh, penicillin, and phenylbutazone. So these are the drug-induced causes of aplastic anemia. There are chemical causes. There is also radiation exposure and viral illnesses. Now you know a lot of viral illnesses definitely cause aplastic anemia. It can be transient. It need not be permanent. But viral illnesses do exist that cause aplastic anemia. And one of the most common ones that we encounter is dengue. Dengue can cause aplastic anemia. It can cause hemolysis. It can cause anemia. It can also cause anemia because of bone marrow suppression. It will cause lymphopenia and it will also cause thrombocytopenia. So here, what do you see? These are two viral particles. The first one is Epstein-Barr virus, EBV. EBV is also linked to a lot of lymphomas. So EBV is also definitely one of the causative organisms for aplastic anemia. Human parvo B19, parvovirus B19. This is also one of the common causes of aplastic anemia. Now, what is this particular virus here? Have anyone seen the morphological structure of such a virus before? If you by chance know the answer, you can tell me what virus this is. You can text in the chat box or you can tell. You can use your mic and tell.
COVID.
Karan, COVID.
COVID what?
COVID-19.
Very good. COVID-19. That's correct. Mukesh, you're also right. COVID-19. So the virus that is right now most predominant in our lives, defining our lives, and the reason I'm wearing this right now is because of coronavirus. And COVID-19 duties is the reason I couldn't usually take classes coming here. But now, because there are technological problems, I had to come here for taking the class. Anyways, so this is also one of the positive organisms for pancytopenia. Now, aplastic anemia can also be seen in these cases. We do have a lot of case studies for COVID-19, which have recently uh, diagnosed aplastic anemia in the patients. So, since this is also a virus, it can cause aplastic anemia through pancytopenia in bone marrow depression in COVID-19 patients. So the pathogenesis is same for everything. There's an immune mechanism that is responsible for most of the cases of idiopathic acquired aplastic anemia. We do not know what is the exact mechanism. We probably think it's because of destruction of the bone marrow cells because of T lymphocytes. So activated cytotoxic T cells in blood and bone marrow lead to bone marrow failure. They cause apoptosis and destruction of the precursors of RBCs, neutrophils, and thrombocytes in case of cytotoxic T cells in the bone marrow. Clinical features: the signs and symptoms are anemia because of decreased production of RBC, bleeding or ecchymosis or bleeding gums, and epistaxis because of thrombocytopenia. Infection that lead to fever and also mouth ulcers. Mouth ulcers can also be seen. Common infections that can occur in the mouth. So these are some red spots, are also called purpura, and petechiae. These are bruises that you can see. These are easy visibility. Even a small amount of pressure can cause this kind of bruising that is seen in thrombocytopenia. Now, case history, we have the previous case that we discussed before in the first slide. 41-year-old female presents with easy fatigability, severe pallor, then she has bleeding gums, and then all sorts of other stuff. She has fever and mouth ulcers too. For the same patient, initial counts were hemoglobin 4.7 gram per deciliter, WBC count of just 900. Remember, the normal WBC count is from 4,000 to 11,000. That's the range of WBC count that you get. Sorry. And the hemoglobin is 4.7. 4.7. Normal should be about 12 in females, about 13 in males. So 12 to 14 or 12 to 15 in females, and 13 to 15 or 13 to 16 in case of males. But here it's 4.7. That means it's severe anemia. Anything less than 7 is severe anemia. WBC count of 900, that means it's lymphopenia. Platelet count of 8,400. That's also very low. Platelet count should normally be greater than 1.5 lakhs. This is 8,400. That's very low. So if any platelet count less than 10,000, you need to give platelet transfusion because there are chances of intracranial hemorrhage. Below 5,000, you definitely have intracranial hemorrhage. That is why you need to act very quickly here. So bone marrow biopsy shows aplastic anemia. With a platelet count of this low, bone marrow biopsy is usually not done, but you can give an extra packet of platelets, probably single dollar platelets, and then you can go for bone marrow biopsy. The bone marrow biopsy shows aplastic anemia. So the other lab investigations are complete blood count, which shows low RBC, WBC platelets, low hemoglobin, and hematocrit level. Reticulocyte count will be low. Bone marrow test should be done, bone marrow aspiration or bone marrow biopsy, preferably bone marrow biopsy. These are the normal values of all the bloodlines. RBC count is 4.7 to 6.1 in male, 4.2 to 5.4 in female. Hemoglobin is 13.8 to 17.2 in male, and 12.1 to 15.1 in female. Hematocrit is 40.7 to 50.3 at 36.1 to 44.3. WBC count, like I said, is 4,000 to 11,000. Platelet count is it's greater than 1.5 lakhs but less than 4 lakhs. You can go up to 5 lakhs. Reticulocyte count 0.5 to 1.5%. And here the reticulocyte count will be less than 0.5%. That is the proper indication that it is a hyperproliferative anemia. So reticulocyte count less than 0.5% gives a hyperproliferative picture. The same picture is seen in severe iron deficiency anemia. It's also seen in anemia of chronic disease and also in thalassemia. The next one is an antibody test. If there is any specific antibody that can cause this sort of pancytopenia, you have to look for that. For example, if the patient has COVID-19, you're going to check for IgG, COVID-19 antibodies, to see if there is causing pancytopenia in a patient with pancytopenia. If these antibodies are present, that means the patient has had a previous infection that is causing this sort of sequelae. It need not have an active infection for the patient to have pancytopenia. A previous or past infection can cause this sort of cytopenia, and that's why an antibody test will tell us if there's a past infection of this of that type in this patient. The treatment won't vary because all you have to do is give supportive therapy, and if there is permanent bone marrow suppression, then you have to go for the treatment that I'm going to mention in the next slides. So the other test is vitamin B12 and folate deficiency, because vitamin B12 and folate deficiency can also cause pancytopenia and also cause thrombocytopenia. Liver function tests and viral tests are necessary because in case of cirrhosis of liver, there can be thrombocytopenia, and viral tests because in hepatitis A, B, C, D, E, all of them can present with pancytopenia. X-ray and CT scan to look for any sort of infections in the chest, and ultrasound imaging test to look for abdominal infection. Or to look for organomegaly also. Hepatosplenomegaly. If there is any splenomegaly, you have to suspect leukemias or any sort of chronic disorders. So the next one is diagnosis. Now, how do you diagnose? First one is blood peripheral smear. There will be pancytopenia, reticulocytopenia. So that means there is going to be less number of RBC, less number of WBC, less number of thrombocytes, less number of platelets, and there will be also less number of reticulocytes. So reticulocytopenia also will see. Bone marrow aspiration of biopsy will show hypocellular. Hypocellular means reduced number of cells, or aplastic bone marrow with increased fat spaces. So the bone marrow that does not have cells will be compensated with fat spaces. So there will be fat vacuoles. Tests for underlying cause are viral titers. You have to go for viral titers, look for the underlying cause. So differential diagnosis of pancytopenia. What are the other causes that can produce pancytopenia? It's not aplastic anemia. There can be because of drugs, megaloblastic anemia, which we discussed, bone marrow infiltration or replacement because of lymphoma, myeloma, acute leukemia, or secondaries. Lymphoma, myeloma, acute leukemia, or secondaries. Hypersplenism in case of chronic liver disease can produce this. Systemic lupus erythematosus (SLE) can cause pancytopenia. Then disseminated TB can cause pancytopenia. Paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria, which we discussed in the previous classes, can cause pancytopenia. And sepsis. Sepsis itself can cause pancytopenia. So these are the differential diagnoses or other causes of pancytopenia. So, sorry, differential diagnosis of aplastic anemia, but there are the other causes of pancytopenia. Here you can see a picture that shows bone marrow aspiration done using a bone marrow aspiration needle along with a syringe. This is a bone marrow biopsy. You can either do it here at the iliac crest or you can do it over the sternum. Bone marrow biopsy is particularly painful, so you have to use caution while doing it, and also you have to give local anesthesia. So you see bone marrow here. This is the normal bone marrow. You see the hematoxin stain here. The reddish ones are RBC precursors, the other ones are erythroid precursors, sorry, myeloid precursors. So these are the vacuoles, fat vacuole stains. This is a normal bone marrow. Whereas this is the bone marrow biopsy of a hypocellular increased fat spaces of aplastic anemia. You can see the difference between the previous slide and this slide. Here you see how many cells there are here, and see how many cells there are here. The very few cells here. Most of the bone marrow is filled with fat vacuoles. These are all fat vacuoles. So what is the textbook treatment for aplastic anemia? First, the treatment of underlying cause is possible. If there is a removal possible, you have to remove the cause. Then you have supportive care with blood and platelet transfusion. Infection, you have to give broad spectrum antibiotics. Asepsis has to be followed while carrying any sort of procedure on the patient. Aseptic precautions are must ensure. If you introduce a infection in the hospital to this particular patient who is having very low WBC count, the patient is going to collapse. It's very difficult to revive them after giving them a hospital-acquired infection. So strict asepsis is done. And then bone marrow transplant is the curative. Patient age less than 40 years. That is the indication. Availability of a HLA identical sibling marrow donor is also necessary. HLA identical sibling marrow donor. is also necessary. The other form of treatment is immunosuppression, either using cyclosporin, glucocorticoids, usually in congenital pure red cell aplasia. This is another syndrome that causes just pure red cell aplasia. Anti-lymphocyte or anti-thymocyte globulin, ALG or ATG, anti-thymocyte globulin can be used to prevent the destruction or the destruction of myeloid precursors of lymphocytes in case of bone marrow. Cyclophosphamide is a drug that causes immunosuppression. So that can be used in case of aplastic anemia. Androgens increase the production of increase the production capacity of bone marrow itself. So androgens can be used to increase that. Thymectomy for adult pure red cell aplasia. So in adult pure red cell aplasia, thymus plays an important role. So you have to do thymectomy. Coming to our case history, this patient received cyclophosphamide, high dose cyclophosphamide, because 41 years the chances of recurrence after bone marrow transplant is high. So they opted for cyclophosphamide. Post cyclophosphamide white cells appeared 10 days after treatment. There were 6. So this patient had literally very low WBC. So there were 6 white cells in each field. So then here you have a small lymphocyte, a large lymphocyte, neutrophil. This is a neutrophil. This is a monocyte. This is a basophil. Right? This is a large lymphocyte. This is a small lymphocyte. This is a eosinophil. This is a neutrophil, multi-lobed nucleus here, monocyte, and basophil. A month after treatment, there were 160 WBCs and 11 neutrophils. At 1 month, 10 days, there were 600 white cells and 420 neutrophils. And the patient was sent back home, asked to report twice weekly, and antibiotics were continued. So cyclophosphamide actually helped in this patient. No, does anyone know what this particular thing is? Anyone? Does anyone know what this is? If you know the answer, you can type in the chat box. Any idea? You can attempt. You can tell what it is. You can either type or you can talk. What is this? Shunt. Deepika says it's a shunt. It's kind of a shunt, but there's a particular name for it. Okay, I'll just give the name. It's called Hickman's catheter. It's a catheter that's used to connect, as you can see in the picture, it's used to connect the external jugular vein through the and the outlet goes through the external jugular vein. This is the subclavian vein, or it can either go through the subclavian vein or go from the external jugular vein into the right atrium, and it comes out through the chest. There's an incision that comes out through the chest. It's passed through this particular lumen and comes out through the chest. It's called Hickman's catheter. It's used for long-term delivery of a particular drug. In this particular person, it's IV cyclophosphamide. Long-term delivery, it can be in place for more than 1 to 2 months. But regular cleaning with saline and heparinized solution, heparinized saline is used to prevent any blocks from this catheter. If there's any blocks, if there's any infection, especially in a patient with cyclophosphamide, this patient can definitely die of severe infection, because cyclophosphamide kills the pre-existing WBCs and new WBCs are formed after that. So during the pulse therapy of cyclophosphamide, if there is any infection, that means it is very fatal for the patient. So you have to be very careful and have to follow strict aseptic precautions while inserting this sort of catheter. So external jugular catheter or subclavian catheter that comes out to the chest is called Hickman's catheter. So severe aplastic anemia has bad prognosis. 2 of 3 peripheral blood criteria must be there to call it as severe aplastic anemia. Neutrophils less than 500, platelets less than 20,000, reticulocyte count less than 0 to 0.5%. So our patient that we discussed, a 41-year-old female patient, had severe aplastic anemia. Prognosis: improved survival with newer treatment modalities. It relates to severity, right? It relates to severity. Sorry, catheter name is Hickman's catheter. Hickman, Hickman's catheter. Prognosis is improved survival with newer treatment modalities and relates to severity. And there is also a chance of evolution to myelodysplastic syndrome, paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria, and acute myeloid leukemia, especially after treatment with cyclophosphamide. So there's a smaller aspect of this called agranulocytosis. There's only leukopenia here. There's decrease in total leukocyte count. Neutropenia can also be seen, decrease in neutrophil count less than 1500 per ml per microliter. Agranulocytosis is severe neutropenia less than 500. So leukopenia is decrease in total leukocyte count, neutropenia is less than 1500, and agranulocytosis is severe neutropenia is greater less than 500 neutrophils per microliter. Causes are congenital. There is a congenital cause of agranulocytosis. Drug induced because of chloramphenicol, CBZ, and carbamazole, then 4-trimoxazole, gold, and phenytoin, sulfa drugs. Infections: viral, hepatitis, influenza, HIV, bacterial because of typhoid or miliary TB. In case of benign, the causes are familial or racial. That means there can be any sort of familial cause that can produce agranulocytosis. Even some racial aspects can also have this racial aspect is particularly seen in black people. Agranulocytosis is more common in case of black people, right? Now, cyclical causes can also be seen in cases of females. Immune, that is autoimmune disorder, SLE or Felty syndrome can have agranulocytosis. So here the most common cause is obviously drug induced. Chloramphenicol, an antibiotic, can cause drug-induced agranulocytosis. CBG, carbamazepine, is an anti-epileptic drug that has a chance of causing aplastic anemia or agranulocytosis. Carbamazole can cause agranulocytosis. 4-trimoxazole, again an antibiotic. Gold, heavy metal. Phenytoin, anti-epileptic drug, and sulfa drugs. These are the most common cause of agranulocytosis. Clinical features are obviously mouth infection, sore throat, mucositis, and ulcers of mouth and throat, skin or anus. So these are the clinical features. The features of sepsis like gram positive, gram negative, fever, and hypotension and MODS. Fever can or cannot be present, but hypotension, multi-organ dysfunction, MODS, can be present. In prolonged neutropenia, fungal infections are likely to develop. So Candida, oral Candida, or Aspergillus pulmonare can also be seen. So coming to investigations and treatment of agranulocytosis, the peripheral blood smear shows a marked decrease or absence of neutrophils. The bone marrow may show myeloid hypoplasia or absence of myeloid precursors. Myeloid hypoplasia or absence of myeloid precursors. In many cases, the bone marrow is cellular with a maturation arrest at the promyelocytic stage. So a promyelocyte leukemia can be a precursor to this sort of condition. On occasion, the bone marrow may be hypercellular. So that is in brief about agranulocytosis. So that's the end of today's class. Thank you. And if you have any doubts, you can ask in the chat box.